Welcome to Game Fondue Reviews. In this video we're going to take a look at Glen More. In Glen More you're building up your Scottish clan in the 1600s. Let's jump right in with the description of the rules, see a few example turns being played, then I'll be back for some closing remarks. This is Glen More set up for a 4-player game. The first thing you need to set up is sort these tiles by the number on their backs, the 0, 1, 2, and 3. Then each player takes a starting village and puts a clan member on it. Then you just kind of form a pool of everything else. Each guy starts with 6 money and his personal supply that's visible to everybody. Then you choose a start player. We already did it. He just kind of puts his guy out, then everybody else puts their guy in order. And then from these stacks 0 on to 1, 2, and 3, you just lay out the tiles around the board. And when the zeros run out, you continue with the ones like so. But you always leave one space behind the guy who's going to go first, as you can see here. If this was a 2 or 3 player game, you would use the die. I would actually take the place of one of the other guys. So you put the 3 players out as normal in a 3-player game, and then the die would be the 4th one, like so. Also, in a 2 or 3 player game, you put 1 coin on each of these start spaces in the warehouse. But in a 4 or 5 player game, you do not do that. So the game consists of 3 rounds, and at the end of each round there is a scoring phase, and each round ends when the last tile of the corresponding stack is out. So when this last one is placed on the board, the first scoring. When the last 2 is placed, the second scoring, and so on. After that 3rd scoring, there is a final scoring, and at the end of the game, the player with the most points is going to be the winner. So let's get to the players' turns. In this game, the player order is always going to be whoever's in the back. So if there was a situation where this guy kept remaining in the back, it's still going to be his turn. You never go in clockwise order. It's always based on the turn order track here. So each player's turn consists of 4 phases. Move your figure, place a tile, activate tiles, and then draw a new tile. So let's go over moving a figure. When you move a figure, you can move to any space on this board here that you can afford and are able to place. Some tiles have a cost in the upper left-hand corner. Let's see if we can find one. Like here, costs 1 gray cube. Most of these initial ones are free. As you can see, there's no cost. So let's just say he moved here. So you take the corresponding tile, as long as you can afford it, and you place it in your area. So if it has a cost, you would pay that. And again, you cannot take a tile you cannot pay for, and you place it in your area. It has to be adjacent to at least one tile you already have, and corner to corner is not good enough. If it has a river, it has to continue your river, which runs vertically through the center of your village. If it has a road, like this one here, it has to continue horizontally. You can only ever have one river and one road, and your starting tile has both on it. So you'll place that in your area. It has to be adjacent to a tile that already exists, and it has to be adjacent to a clan member. Regarding a clan member though, corner to corner is good enough. So if there was an example where you already had this tile here and you moved up to this one here, which has neither a river nor a road, you could place that over here. That would be totally okay because it's still within a corner of a clan member. Some tiles, when you place them, immediately give you an award, and that would be in the lower corner here. So this example, this gives you a whiskey as soon as you place it. It never does it again, just at that moment when you first place it. Any effect a tile does is in the center. As you can see here, this one's going to produce some brown cubes when it gets the chance. There's also some special buildings, see if I can find one here, that give you these cards along with them. So this is Loch Oik, and when you take that, you would just go in here and find the Loch Oik card, and you would put that in your area as well. And those are worth points at the various scoring steps of the game. So the next part of your turn is activating the tiles. And again, corner to corner is okay. The only time it's not okay is when you're just placing. You couldn't have placed like this. But as long as it's connected to stuff, you can activate that tile and all other tiles next to it if you choose. It's totally optional what things are activated, but you do get to choose the order. So when you activate a tile, you do what it does. So if I activate this pasture, I put a brown cube on it. This forest, I get a green cube. And this movement tile here gives me 1 movement point. You can use movement points to move your guy 1 space, and again, he can move diagonally, or you can use them to cash in and just take this guy off your board and he'll be a chieftain. You probably don't want to do that early in the game because once he's a chieftain, he can never be on your board again, which will prevent you from actually placing more tiles. Speaking of which, if you're ever in a situation where you cannot legally afford any tile, you can just take any one you want, move to that space, throw it away, and then you have to move 1 clansman in your area. If you have no clansmen in your area, you just block a tile, but that's not a good situation to be in. So as you're activating tiles, you can only activate each eligible tile once, and all production buildings have a limit of 3. So if this already had 3 brown cubes on it when it was activated, it doesn't get any more. That is the absolute maximum. So for the last phase of a player's turn, he first removes any tiles behind these guys. Remember, there's always one empty space. So let's just pretend there was a situation where he was the last guy in a row like this. So it would be his turn, and he jumps up here. So the first thing he does is he removes any tiles behind them. They're going to be out of the game. And then refills with always the lowest number available until there's one space behind the guy at the end of the track. Then it's going to be this guy's turn, and he's going to continue. Also, I want to point out, if you're in a 2 or 3 player game and it's ever the die's turn, which means the die is at the end of the line, you just roll that, and that's how many empty spaces he moves. He does not count spaces with people in them, and he just takes that tile out of the game, and you refill as normal. As soon as the last number of a pile is drawn, we stop for a brief scoring phase. So that means some of the tiles in group 3 probably you're not going to have a chance to get, but that's just part of the game. So during a scoring phase, you check the number of a few different things. You count your amount of whiskey, your amount of special cards, and your amount of chieftains. And those are these guys laying down plus any tams. Some of these special cards give you tams, and they count as chieftains as well. And what you do is you compare yours to the person with the lowest amount. So if I have 5 whiskey, and this player over here has 2, and this guy has 1, but this guy has 0, I'm comparing to him because he's the one with the lowest amount. And that's how you score points in this game, based on your differences. So there's this little chart here in the table that you can see. So if the difference is only 1, you get 1 point. If the difference is 2, 2 points. 3 is 3, 4 is 5. But then if you have 5 different, you get 8 points. So you can get a lot of points for having a lot more of something than somebody else. So again, that's compared with the person the lowest for whiskey, for chieftains and tams, and for these number of cards you have. So you're going to score 3 different ways, and you just take the corresponding number of victory points. It's also important to note that you're going to score victory points from some tiles that you activate during the game. Before we talk about the final scoring and the end of the game, there is one more thing to note, and that is this warehouse here. In this warehouse, you can buy various resources as you need them, but when you buy resources, you cannot take them to your supply. You have to need them for that moment. So what I mean by that is, if you're activating a tile or purchasing a tile that has a resource that you don't have, you can buy it. And the way you buy it is you just put that number of coins on the space. So if this was empty, I can just buy one of those for 1 coin. If I needed to buy another one, I'd have to pay 2, and then the maximum would be 3. If there's already 3 out here like this, and you need to buy a gray, unfortunately you will be unable to buy a gray because it's totally bought. And the coins stay out there because there's also a selling action. Unlike the buying action, you can sell whenever you'd like to during your own turn, even multiple times. So let's say green had this on it here. If I wanted to sell this green good from my board, I just return it, and I take the largest number of coins from the group there. So I would get 2 coins for doing so, because that's how many there was. I can't sell any brown, unfortunately, because there's no coins in that group. So the game ends immediately after this third scoring. After that third scoring, there's one final scoring, and the way it works is like this. Each player gets 1 point for every coin they have. Also, you compare the number of tiles in your village to the player with the least number of tiles. And then this is very strange, but you actually lose 3 points per tile you have more than them. So let's pretend this player only had 1 tile and I had 3 at the end of the game. Obviously, you're going to have a lot more, because compared to the lowest, he has 1, I have 3, that's 2 more. So I would actually lose 2 times 3. I would lose 6 points for having more tiles than that other player. So it's important to be efficient in this game, though having a lot of tiles can be very powerful. There's also some tiles that award victory points, and you award those at this time. Let's get going with this example playthrough. So the blue player's turn, because he's at the back, and this guy over here is the blue player. So he's going to go, and he's going to take whatever he wants. So he's going to go to this village tile here, because it's free. He just has to put it along his road in his board, and it has to be adjacent to a clan member. So he puts it here, and it's definitely adjacent to a clan member. Whenever he plays this one, he immediately gets another guy, because that's the one-time effect. And now he activates both of these tiles, if he'd like to, because they're adjacent, and he has 2 movement points. He could use some of those movement points to turn guys into chieftains, but for now he's just going to leave the guys where they are, because he's going to have a lot more options placing later. So then there's no tiles here. We just refill accordingly. So now it's the yellow player's turn, and the yellow player is going to take a jump here to the forest. So the yellow player is going to put that here. It's got to be on either side along the river and adjacent to a clansman. So he sticks it here, and then he gets to activate those tiles. So he gets 1 movement point, which he'll use to move this guy here. Remember, he can move diagonally or otherwise. but then he also gets to use this tile itself, so he's going to put 1 green cube on it. Welcome back. It's now the yellow player's turn because he's last along the track, and the first thing he's going to do in his turn is he's actually going to sell a green good. So he's going to put that in and take this 2 money off of green. Then he's going to go for Castle Moyle. Now he only has a green, which means he needs to buy a yellow and a gray, and gray is pretty expensive. So he puts them there, and then he takes the tile. Now, because it has an effect on this side of it, he immediately gets that. So remember, he has to place it adjacent to at least 1 clan member, so he's going to stick it over here, but it comes with the clan member itself. Also, it is a special tile, and you can tell that by this real big, bright pink symbol here. So he gets that card, and that card gives him 1 whiskey immediately, and it's worth 1 chieftain or 1 tam later on. So now he can activate it and all adjacent tiles. So this and this gives him 2 movement points, and then he activates the green and the brown as well because they're all adjacent. He can't activate these over here because they're not adjacent to that tile. So he could move. He's pretty happy with where everybody is though, so he's not going to move. And remember, he could even move this guy, even though that guy wasn't adjacent to all the action. So at the end of his turn, this one is cleared because it's behind the guy who's going to go next. And then we lay out tiles. And that happens to be the last of the ones. So the first scoring is going to take place right now. So everybody totals their whiskey. This player has 2, this player has 2, and these guys over here have 0. So we compare them to them. So 2 to 0 is a difference of 2. So each of these guys gets 2 points, and of course 0 to 0 is no difference at all. So no points are awarded there. Next we do the same thing with cards. This guy has 2 cards. This guy has 0, this guy has 0, and that guy has 1. So his difference of 2 would be 2. His difference of 1 is worth 1, and the zeros don't score anything. And lastly, the number of chieftains. So this guy has 1 chieftain. This guy has 2 tams, which count as chieftains. This guy has none, and this guy has 2 as well, because he has 1 and then 1 on the card. So 2 is once again the maximum and 0 the minimum. So this guy is going to go for 2 more points, and this guy is going to get 2 as well. And then this guy over here gets 1 for being 1 different. So that's how the scoring works. We'll join back at the end of the game. Now that the regular scoring is over, we go to the final scoring. And you get 1 point per money. So this guy has 8 points for his money there. So he takes that from the bank. This guy has 7, so he gets his 7. This guy over here only has 1. And this guy over here has a whole lot of money. He's got 15 money. Next, we check for some special buildings that score. This guy has the Iona Abbey, which gives 2 points per yellow. So he gets 2, 4, 6, 8 points there. This guy over here doesn't have any. This guy has Loch Morar, which gives 2 points per green. So that's 2, 4, 6 points here. And this guy has a pretty powerful one. He gets 3 for every village he has, which is 7 villages. So that's 21 points. Lastly, we figure out who had the smallest number of tiles. I think it's this guy with 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Let's confirm that. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 over there. And 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 here. So 9 being the smallest. Based on how many more you have than that, you lose points. So this guy had 10, so he loses 3 points. This guy had 12, so he actually loses 9 points. And this guy had 13 tiles, so he actually loses 12 points. So now we calculate the scores, and whoever has the most points wins. Glen More is a neat little game, and when you're playing, you're in that constant state of, well, how much do I really want that? Because if I go all the way down there, I miss the opportunity to get all these. There's that really bizarre scoring mechanic at the end where you actually lose points for having more tiles than other people. But if you're picking tiles and utilizing them, you should be getting more than 3 points per tile anyway. So that just kind of keeps you in check to make sure you're not just taking everything you can, but still put the strain on you to say, well, how much do I really want that? It makes for a nice tense game. It plays really well with the automatic dice on smaller player counts. I like that a lot, but it's definitely best with about 4 players. More people picking stuff just makes this choices even tenser because you don't know what's going to be out there the next time you get a chance. This game is definitely underappreciated, and it does help to have an understanding of what tiles are in the bag ahead of time so that you kind of know what could come up and what things will be used where. So there's definitely strategy in this game, and it's a neat little one, a medium weight game. Check it out if it looks fun to you. That's Glen More.